felt that it's important to listen to the community and to listen to the concerns that the people may have. Personally, I care about where I live. I care about the people that are affected in these type of situations. As an individual who have experienced some of these things, I feel that it's important to address and to face these things, ahead. I have children that I worry about. I have parents that I worry about. I have friends that I worry about. And I think that this is something that we need to do. We need to go head on and try to address so that we can be a shining example of what it takes to come together as a community to ensure that we keep these things away from our doors. There are a lot of people who feel that the system has affected them in different ways. And if there are people in the city of Lowell that may feel like that, we think that it's important that everyone here at this panel listens. So this is what we're going to do. We are going to listen. There are some individuals who have registered online and will come and we will listen. They will have a limited time to speak, within the range of 2 minutes. And my hope is that they can express their concerns and we can at least have something to take away. The hope also is that this is not a one and done. It should not be the only time we have these type of discussions, because this discussion has been happening for 400 years, and it won't stop. But the magic is to keep having these discussions, because the dead weight of our history will always be here if we ignore it. So, without further ado, I will introduce the mayor, John Leahy, so he can say something about today's event.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm John Leahy. I'm the mayor of the city of Lowell. I'm going to introduce some of my colleagues that are here today. Councilor Rodney Elliott, Councilor John Drinkwater, Councilor Danny Rourke, Councilor Vice Chair Rhea Murphy, School Committee Member Jackie Doherty, Superintendent of Schools Joe Boyd, City Manager is here, Chief of Police Ellie Richardson, we've got State Representative Tom Golden, Dave Nangle, School Committee Member Andy Dakota, and Councilor Sakara Chow, and Congresswoman Laurie Fernand. As George mentioned, we're here today to listen. This is something that isn't going to go away. We want to work together as a city, and as your elected officials, we're here to listen and to move the city forward. So I thank you for participating today. I thank all the people that are here today on the panel. The Assistant Superintendent of Police are here too, Mr. Golden and Mr. LaRon. We appreciate that the police department is here with us. They are a very important part of this. And again, we are here all to work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Leahy, City Manager Donahue, and Superintendent Richardson for bringing us together today for this listening session. I'm glad to be joined by all my partners in state and local government. And I'd like to just start by acknowledging the obvious. Racism has existed in America since its founding, and it continues to exist in our country today. It is a public health crisis, and it is killing Black and brown Americans each day. COVID-19 did not create the racial disparities in our healthcare system, but it exposed how deadly they can be. Similarly, George Floyd's horrific murder was not the first time a Black man was wrongfully killed by a police officer. It was simply the most recent display broadcast on social media for the world to see. His murder, like many before his, exposed deep wounds caused by centuries of racial injustice and failed policies in our country. And while it may seem like these issues are just now resurfacing in cities and towns across our country, for many communities of color, bias, discrimination, and racism are a painful part of everyday life. This is our watch. We must commit ourselves to rooting out racism in all its forms. The sustained commitment of everyone, especially our youth, taking to the streets, parks, and commons across the state, is what's turning these protests, these demands for change, into action. You know, I came here tonight because tomorrow morning I'll be returning to Washington to cast my vote for the Justice and Policing Act of 2020, legislation to overhaul policing in communities across the country, ending police brutality, requiring increased transparency, and making sure that officers are not only accountable for their own conduct, but also empowered to hold each other accountable without fear of retaliation, and to rebuild trust between law enforcement and the communities they serve. Look, had this legislation been law years ago, George Floyd and Eric Gardner, they wouldn't have been killed by a chokehold because it's banned under this legislation. And it hasn't been practiced here in a decade. Breonna Taylor wouldn't have been gunned down in her apartment because police wouldn't have been able to execute a no-knock warrant. And the officer who killed Tamir Rice wouldn't have been on the force because the National Registry would have exposed his long history of misconduct that had previously had him fired from another department. And let's be clear, this goes far beyond law enforcement, and so must our work. We have always encountered excuses as to why we can't tackle disparities in who and who cannot access good health care, quality public schools, clean drinking water, clean air, a fair workplace, housing. We must make sure that that kind of thinking is behind us. And that's why we're going to continue to work on legislation to end these disparities. And it's your input that will help us draft that long overdue legislation. During these past few weeks, I've taken part in conversations like tonight's across this region, and I've listened to the firsthand accounts of our neighbors who don't feel valued, respected, or seen. Just last week, I had the honor of interviewing 3 student leaders responsible for organizing peaceful protests and demonstrations in our community. Listening to folks, especially our young people who have such fresh perspectives and so much to offer in this national conversation has given me hope and optimism for a better path forward. Like everyone, I'm here to listen. I'm here to listen to the experiences and the reflections from so many in the community. But more importantly, I'm here to take recommendations back to Washington with me so that together we can create a better community, a more perfect union, where everyone, regardless of their skin color, can reap the full rewards of equality, freedom, and justice. With that, I thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I want to echo the comments that have been made here. I think over the past several weeks, we've all seen and heard conversations played out across our nation and around Lowell about the uncomfortable truth, and the truth that confronts people of color every day in our community, and that has to remain racism. It remains a force that permeates through our institutions, and it stands in the way of equal justice. And in too many cases, leads to the senseless deaths that we've heard about George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and others. I do want to say that I've been proud of the members of our community who have responded to this very difficult period of time by taking action. Members of our community have stood in solidarity outside City Hall. They've organized online. They've sent letters to city officials. And they have sent a message that they want change and they want meaningful steps around the cause of racial justice here in Lowell. The mayor, Mayor Leahy, the city council, Chief Richardson and his team, the superintendent, school committee, and myself, we've all taken hard work on making a commitment that what needs to happen in Lowell, we will root out racism, position government and law enforcement to better serve our remarkably diverse community, and to bring about change that our community wants. But we believe this process must be guided by input from the public. It must begin by listening and elevating the voices of residents who are too often left out of the discussion. And that's what today's event is about. As has been mentioned, the police have been here all throughout this process, right here with us. And so I want to thank them for their support and their commitment. I also would like to thank everybody in advance who signed up to speak, for their courage and their input into this important conversation. And I want to thank George, our moderator today, for moderating this listening session and for his commitment to making sure that Lowell has the change necessary and is a place for all of us to live, family, friends, and community. So thank you, and I know coming out of this will be a greater and stronger community. Thank you.
Superintendent of Police, Kelly Richardson.
Thank you, Judge. I appreciate the invite here, and the unjustified and senseless killing of George Floyd has undoubtedly caused a chain of events that shed a spotlight on the long-standing and pervasive problems of racial equality and justice in our country, and has shed a light on a history of policies and practices that have contributed to the oppression of black and brown people in our country. And while the problem extends far beyond that of police brutality, that disproportionately impacts people of color, there is no question that the killing of George Floyd and others at the hands of police has resulted in rallies, protests, even riots as a result of these events. While I agree and understand that we are all impacted by these issues and are in fact part of a larger system that perpetuates these inequalities, I do believe that it is appropriate to recognize the accomplishments and work of the Lowell Police Department that have helped to create a culture where major incidents such as these have largely been avoided. That is not to say that there are no problems and that work needs to be done. Of course there is. It's incumbent upon us to always strive to know better and to do better. And we work together to continue to make the city of Lowell a truly diverse city where all people are valued, treated with respect, and allowed to live free from oppression. Thank you.
Hello, how you doing? My name's Anye Kimbe. Live in the Highlands. So for those that don't know, I've personally been racially attacked in Lowell. In 2016, I ran for class president at Lowell High School, and I had racial slurs sent to me towards texts. One of them was, lynching, that I should be lynched and stuff. And it, became big because the school didn't do nothing about it and they hid it under the rug. And I guess it's sad because, I'm very close to a lot of the youths in the community today, and a lot of the youths that are in Lowell High still today, they reach out to me and they tell me that stuff hasn't changed, and it's sad. It's a sad thing because I felt like when what happened to me 4 years ago, I kind of took the burden to make sure change could come for the next generation. These are a lot of kids that were in middle school when it happened to me that now it's affecting them now. And I pretty much all I wanted to say is that, the school system there needs to be a lot of accountability. Lowell High is, we always say that it's very diverse, which is true. There's a lot of students from different backgrounds, but then the teachers, the faculty, the administration, they don't represent the students. So we need to find a way to allow these students to feel safe in this community, because they can go to someone, they can go to someone to talk to when they go for that 6 to 7 hours in school when stuff is going on outside the world. I feel like it really starts in school, because they were supposed to learn certain things at school, so we should be able to let our children know that when they go to Lowell High or whatever school it is in Lowell, that they are protected and they have representation of all kinds. Thank you.
My name is Fru Nkimbeng. I've lived in Lowell for over 30 years. My first encounter was with racism was when I came to this country, when I landed in Lowell, August 21st, 1985. And when I enrolled at the University of Lowell, it so happened that we were seated randomly and the teacher paired us together. Then I happened to be sitting close to a white student. Then from there we just became very good friends. And the following day, I guess she went home and told her parents that she found a black student. Then things kind of changed when she came. She was very eager to touch my skin, and she came and said that her parents had told her that the black person is evil, and that she saw but quite a different thing from me coming from Africa. So, and then she would even tell me that when she went home, they would search, her parents will check her dress to make sure that there are no white hair on her. So that was really an experience, very, very bitter for me, my first experience coming to this country. But I would really say that experience did not really break my spirit. It just encouraged my spirit and actually gave me a lot of energy to be able to understand the society and take people for who they are. I would also like to say that, I mean, when these things happen, we call meetings like this. This is not the first time. And I just hope that after the dust is settled, some action should be implemented. And I would really suggest that it is good to change people if they do the wrong thing. But the most important thing that I would suggest is to change the system, because the system has existed for so many, many years. When you change the system, you will change mentality. And I would also say that when you change people, it's like you are changing the curtain and leave the furniture behind. While I was coming here, my daughter, who's a graduate of Lowell High, she has a bachelor's at UMass Lowell, a master's in public health at BU, and a PhD at Johns Hopkins. She's teaching at the University of Minnesota. She wrote a poem. May I please just read that poem? If another person asks me how I am doing, I am going to scream. How do you think I am doing? How do you think I have been doing? How do you know me? How does my pain now concern you? How do you think I will be doing tomorrow? Even before I was born, my brothers and sisters have and are being killed for no reason. Emmett Till, George Floyd, Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor, too many names. Where were you then? Did you see me hurting then? How do you think I have been doing? What makes you think you deserve a response today? Your white privilege, your peace of mind, the fact that you don't fear walking down the street, the fact that you only represent yourself and I represent all of us. Should I be grateful that you have finally recognized my pain? Actually, have you recognized my pain? Don't you understand why and how I hurt? Do you understand the part you are playing in my pain? Is it because you care, feel guilty, or because it is the flavor of the moment? If this is just going along with the flow, please let me be. I need all my energy. I need to pray for my brothers. I need to pray for sisters. I need to be strong for my siblings and my community. If you have recognized my pain, great. Here is how I am feeling. I am feeling angry. I am sad. I am afraid. I am feeling all these at the same time, together and continuously. Now you know and you can help. Listen to me. Listen to my brother. Listen to my sister. I mean, listen to us. Fully listen. Dr. Manka Nkimbe. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Maybelline Toro, and I'm a rising senior at Lowell High. Earlier this month, a Twitter account made by a student who goes to LHS compiled racist videos, text messages, and other concrete evidence from racist students at Lowell High. We have already had lengthy discussions with the school about this, and the superintendent, who has assured us that he will listen to and meet our written demands geared towards making Lowell High safer for its diverse community, and we are glad to see that change is coming. However, the school continues to be vague on what consequences the students who were exposed will receive, and has made it clear that the punishment will not be punitive and will not affect the students' records. This brings to light another issue at LHS, and that is the disparity between people of color and white students getting suspended or punished in school. I have seen time and time again students of color getting suspended for doing things that white students get away with, whether it be fighting or loitering in the hallways. These suspensions go on their permanent records, making it harder for them to apply to certain colleges. By LHS saying they don't want to discipline the students, that seems as though they are once again protecting white racist students at the expense of students of color. This is why I propose that the students who were repeat offenders in those videos receive something on their student records highlighting this fact, as well as go through a social inequity training within the high school. These students should be suspended from any leadership position they hold within the school, such as being the captain of a sports team or the president of a club. Until the school makes racism a punishable offense, it will continue. To deal with the disparities between the discipline of students of color versus white students at the school, I suggest the school creates a disciplinary council with teachers, administrators, and also students. The student voice within this council will make sure that every student, regardless of their race, is being treated and disciplined fairly, as this has not always been the case in the past. The trust has been broken between the students of Lowell High and faculty, and in order to rebuild that trust, we need to see real concrete actions being taken towards inclusivity and anti-racism, and disciplining the racist students to the fullest extent, and creating a disciplinary council will do just that. Once again, I'd like to thank Superintendent Dr. Boyd for the support and work he has done so far. I'm really looking forward to a better Lowell High next year. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sue Kim, and I am a proud resident of Lowell. I'm also a member of the Merrimack Valley Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Consortium, on behalf of which I present to you this letter that urges the city to declare racism a public health crisis. It was also sent electronically to the City Council. As of yesterday, it had over 1,100 signatures, including 84 organizations. Thank you.
Good afternoon. City Manager John Hu, Mayor Leahy, and fellow elected officials. Thank you for giving us the space to express to you why racism is a health crisis. Some of you may know me, some of you don't. To many of you, I am known as the Executive Director of the Cambodian Mutual Assistance Association. Today, I am speaking as a citizen of Lowell, residing at 95 Florence Avenue in the Highlands neighborhood. Growing up as a youth, I swam in the canal. I lived in many neighborhoods. I found myself breakdancing with friends from Adam Project in downtown Lowell at the after-school program. But at that time, lots of gang activity took place, and that was the only way that I could stay out of trouble. We performed at City Hall for special events, gave food away at Thanksgiving dinners, and more. 1997, I was 17 years old. Two friends and I were in our PJs, wanted to go rent a movie for a good night of movie watching. As we were approaching School Street at the intersection of Middlesex Street, 5 to 6 police officer cars pull us over. They pull us over, and 2 seconds later, I had a gun held to my head. He pointed at me, and he said, "Stop. We need to check your car. We need to search you, and we need to make sure that you do not match the car that drove by earlier." That moment changed the way I viewed the police officers the rest of my life. Growing up, my mother told me that, you know, when you're bad, police officers will come and treat you and things like that. But it changed the way I grew up as an adult and to where I am today. I wanted to use this opportunity to make sure that we all work together as a city and as a community to ensure that racism is not only just a crisis, and that by declaring it, but also that we get all the resources we can to put it behind the efforts that we're trying to put forth. Mayor Leahy, no disrespect to what your statement was on the Lowell Sun, but I want you to know that even though it may not happen to some of you at the table and that Lowell is a safe city, it is happening to people across the communities and across the neighborhoods. So thank you very much.
Hi, good evening. And I'm Elsie Nunn. I'm from Project Learn. It's really nice to see familiar faces here today. I stand up in support of the DEI letter. We stand in solidarity with our community. Project Learn advocates for and supports all students of Lowell, 70% of whom are students of color. And we're committed to combating racism and dismantling systems of inequities in our schools and beyond. We also believe that it's our shared responsibility as advocates and community members. Well, our organization works directly with the Lowell Public Schools, and whose teachers and administrators are on the front lines and see the racial and economic disparities every day in the classroom. And while each letter, all 5 points, are of critical importance, we found points number 3 and 5 particularly resonant. We've been an advocate and supporter of the anti-racism and anti-bias training for our educators in the schools, and it's essential that ongoing anti-racism, anti-bias training is mandatory for all staff in our municipal organizations and beyond. In addition, a staffed office of diversity, equity, and inclusion with a cabinet-level position can be really pivotal to support developing and advancing a workforce that reflects the vibrant cultural diversity that this city is known for and proud of. Our diverse young people in our community deserve to have a future that we can all believe in, and a city that reflects who they are and the kind of leaders they can strive to be in coming years. And one additional piece I would like to add, as a citizen and a former employee over a decade ago over at City Hall, is one of the things that I experienced was getting to work on all of the festivals in the city. And it was an honor to work with the cultural plan at the time for the city, which was striving to make a more equitable opportunity for all the festivals. And one of the things that we observed was that there was a different level of support that organizations would need to pay for police detail. And some of the largest festivals in the city paid the least because the city contributed in other ways in kind. And some of the smaller festivals, like the Southeast Asian Water Festival, at that time, and it might be very different now, had actually quite a high, about a third of their budget went to pay for police detail. But these are the sort of inequities that I'm excited for you all to strive to address, and appreciate your leadership. So thank you very much.
Hello. You gonna tell me when you're ready? Oh, okay. Thank you, Manager, Mayor, Congresswoman, Superintendents, Council members, and our state representatives. Thank you for being here. I am Sue Levine, and I am joined by Bruce Robinson, Board Chair for Lowell Community Health Center. I stand before you today as CEO of Lowell Community Health Center and as a Lowell Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Consortium member and signer of the Lowell DEI letter, urging the City of Lowell to declare racism a public health crisis. On June 17th, the Lowell Community Health Center Board of Directors voted unanimously in favor of doing just that. They also authorized me, along with the board members and staff, to sign on to the Lowell DEI letter by choice. Our health center was born out of the civil rights movement to eliminate barriers created by racism, bigotry, and an imbalance of power. We are committed to that mission now more than ever. I represent our patients. My single duty is to listen to them, to understand their needs, and to respond in a manner that ensures dignity and respect for each of them. Our health center has our own work ahead. Health disparities persist in our community as evidenced by this pandemic. Both individual and systemic racism are driving factors. For some, the word racism feels personal. Quoting a friend, "This isn't about all of us as individuals and the roles we hold now. It's about centuries of laws, policies, practices, some subtle in their bias, and some blatantly discriminatory, that have persisted. White leaders, such as myself, must step outside the personal and focus on something far bigger than ourselves, the system. You are compassionate people and dedicated representatives of the voters. It's the system around us that needs fixing. I have to hold my heart together to be part of something far more important than myself. Please join me, a white leader, choosing to be an ally. You have the power to show this city that we are not only diverse and welcoming, but that our actions lift up our residents so that they can thrive equitably and justly. And finally, this letter has created amazing conversations even while it was being drafted and circulating. I've had conversations with business colleagues who I admire and respect, leaders who hold immense power in this community by their position, their wealth, and their privilege. I was asked why the consortium didn't seek a path of collaboration. My answer to that, this letter is all about collaboration. It's a roadmap. It's a roadmap for all of us to follow. Thank you.
My name is Eileen Morrison, and I live in the Highlands. Thank you for the opportunity for community members such as myself to speak to you directly about our concerns. I am here to express my belief that a civilian review board is an essential part of any work going forward to combat systemic racism and other forms of injustice. An independent civilian review board has broad support. It is one of the 5 steps on the letter signed on by more than 1,000 Lowellians and is one of the points in the Massachusetts Elected Officials of Color 10-point plan to combat systemic racism. I appreciate the idea behind the City Council vote last night to have the City Manager instruct the Law Department to draft an ordinance to establish a Citizens Advisory Committee. However, we should be concerned about how this is taking shape. It is imperative that the City Council also establish a working group to work with the Law Department. This working group must be comprised of diverse community members, inclusive of citizens who are most impacted by over-policing and police violence, with a mandate to create a proposed structure for an effective and independent civilian review board. There is no one ideal model of a civilian review board. It is not a one-size-fits-all approach. That is why a working group to investigate the best model for Lowell is so necessary. The National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement, NACOL, provides guidance for funding, data gathering, crafting ordinances and legislation, and structure. NACOL recommends that the first step in creating a civilian review board is to gather a diverse group of stakeholders. NACOL provides information regarding different options that communities can select depending on, for example, the size of the city, the budget provided, and the police department's current relationship with the community. Additionally, the Civilian Review Board must be independent to carry out its oversight responsibilities. A weak Civilian Review Board can be worse than no Civilian Review Board at all, because it gives the illusion of accountability but provides none, which will only breed community mistrust and frustration. An advisory committee, as described by the superintendent, is not the same thing as a civilian review board. The board must be independent and have real power. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you today.
Good evening, Mayor Leahy, Manager Donahue, Chief Richardson, and members of the City Council, Congresswoman Trahan, and the state delegation, Dr. Boyd. Thank you. My name is Vanna Howard, and I live with my family in downtown Lowell. For many of us, racial and ethnic discrimination is very personal. I was born in Cambodia. As a child, the Khmer Rouge murdered both of my maternal grandparents, my father, and my 3 younger siblings. This all happened before I reached the age of 10. For me, the death of George Floyd and other similar cases bring back a flood of very painful memories. But the recent peaceful protests and calls to action, which grew out of those tragedies, remind me of the reason my mother and I came to this country: to escape prejudice based on our name or where we were born or the color of our skin, and to be able to speak up for what we think is right without fear of retaliation. This is a critical time for all of us. We are fortunate to be led by a city manager, a mayor, and council, and a police chief who have acknowledged the plague of racial injustice and expressed a willingness to take bold action in response. But as we move ahead, we must ensure that all community voices are heard and allowed to participate in the development of Lowell's action plan. We must ensure that our action plan is not just fair and bold, but feasible and capable of being executed within a reasonable period of time. And we must ensure that our action plan is in fact implemented and not just placed on a shelf when the news cycle shifts to something else. For nearly 2 centuries, we have been a city of immigrants. Over the last 30 years, Lowell has remembered that history at other critical junctures. In the late 1980s, we adopted a controlled choice program which not only desegregated our schools, but secured us funding for 14 new schools. And just last year, we peacefully moved to a fairer electoral voting system. It's time for us as a community to step up. It's time for us to lead the way. It's time for us to be honest and smart and inclusive and fearless. It's time. Thank you.
Council members, leaders of our community, minority inclusiveness is what has brought me here before you, especially in the decision-making level. Most cases, the resources in this community, unfortunately, is not known to the minority. And so when things happen, we have no idea sometimes where we could go to get the real access of the resources in this community. In most cases, when you happen to have a problem, you would like to see someone who looks like you to confide in, someone who looks like you to talk to. And so my hope is that minority inclusion is what our community needs. We have better and we have excellent resources within us, but the access to bring forth these resources is what we need an education on to see how we can share it and share it effectively. And lastly, I will end by saying this. There is nothing, as they say, like a good war or a bad peace. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I want to thank you for this moment. Thank you for this hearing. My name is Thaddeus Miles. I've lived in Lowell for 30 plus years. In my area of statewide work is housing, public safety, nonprofit leadership. I'm also a funder. I currently fund several programs here in Lowell. In the last 5 years, I've been in the Lowell Sun 3 times for an award from the director of the FBI for my commitment to national community change, as a Boston Celtics hero among us, and being selected by President Obama to be one of 300 people from 60 countries to be part of his first World Conference. Yet, over that same period of time, last 5 years, in Lowell, I've been called nigger, monkey, told to go back to my country, been told that my husband is a Lowell police officer and he's locking up all you niggers, and I hope you're next. I've done business in City Hall, other government offices here in Lowell, and rarely do I see a person that looks like me. But I'm always made to feel black. I know you can't understand that, and I don't have the time to explain that to you. But I see Lowell leadership is awakening right now in doing an HR audit and hiring a racial justice director, but I want you to be accountable. I firmly declare that it's not time to straddle the fence. We care about your actions, not about your words. I need you to get informed. I need you to get more in depth. I need you to tell us what you're going to do and what you're going to accomplish. If you're not working towards a solution, you're not working with us, but rather enforcing a change that have kept us oppressed. Again, thank you. My name is Thaddeus Miles, and I will say that 2 minutes is not enough time for a black man to talk about systemic racism. Have a good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for holding this listening session today. My name is Debbie Freitas, and I'm Christina Freitas. We have been residents of Lowell for 5 years, and we have practiced in the Lowell Juvenile Court as attorneys for 10 years. And during our time in both of these roles, we have come to know that racism exists in Lowell. Lowell needs action now, and we ask you to consider these 3 actions right away. 1, declare racism a public health crisis in Lowell, and then give it the same amount of attention and resources that you have given other public health crises like COVID-19. Lowell Community Health Center has already done this, and Lowell must follow suit. Racism is a pandemic too, and Lowell is comprised of too many diverse people to have this disease continue to flourish here. We have to confront disparities, and we have to confront them now. 2, create a civilian review board to provide input and oversight to the Lowell Police Department. This civilian review board must be a formal working group. It must be composed of diverse community members. It must be inclusive of citizens who are most impacted by over-policing and police violence, and it must have clear and independent authority to act, including subpoena power. 3rd, Lowell Public Schools must engage in the process of eliminating school resource officers from being on campus. As residents of Lowell, we know that the 911 system is a fast and effective remedy in times of emergency. Having police in school blurs lines between discipline and criminalizing adolescent behavior. It contributes to the disproportionate minority contact, and it not only for school discipline, but also referrals to the juvenile court. The initial purpose behind having school resource officers was to keep children safe from gunmen, from trespassers, and from kidnappers. But what the data has shown is that it is not the gunmen, the trespassers, or the kidnappers who are being arrested and summoned out of schools. It is students, it is the children in our schools who are being predominantly arrested. We grew up in schools that did not have SROs, as we are certain many of you did. And the children there, they had fights, and they were disciplined, and they had the opportunity to learn from their mistakes without the without the stigma of a criminal record being attached. When we deprive this current generation of that opportunity, we deprive them of their future and this community of their contribution. The same kids who got into fights when we were in school are now policemen, businessmen, chairmen, CEOs, and parents of other kids in schools. Police officers have handcuffs, they have guns, they have a uniform. Those are their tools. They are not social workers and they are not therapists. You would not call a plumber to fix your broken lights, and you would not call an electrician to fix a water leak. We must invest those resources in therapists, in social workers, in school, to make it a climate where children can learn. We must do better for our community, for our kids, and for Lowell. Thank you, thank you.
Lowellians, I am tired. I can't tell y'all my story in an expected amount of 2 minutes. It's way too much pain for that. The amount of effort Lowell has put into that new justice center is the effort I need to see white people have in dismantling these institutionalized racist systems in Massachusetts and America altogether. Watching this new justice center form is its own prestige is one of the scariest things to witness because the possibilities are endless behind those walls. The amount of direction and willingness in the construction behind these new plans for Lowell exclude a huge amount of our population, the low-income population, with and without government assistance. The new construction in Lowell invites college students, fresh money, and pushes away its locals to more affordable neighborhoods in which will soon be gentrified too. Gentrification in Lowell has been subtle and is now increasingly showing as the influx of people progress. I've seen it firsthand in the Acre, the Highlands, Centreville, Back Central, South Lowell, all over the 5th largest city in Massachusetts. I'm so tired. Allies, I see you, and you know what? It's not my job to pat you on the back either, although you're gonna do it yourselves anyway. I've been going through this. And you do not get a cookie for acknowledging a movement that's been going on since your great-greats were even thought of. All Black lives matter. Black trans lives, Black femmes, Black women, Black families, Black fathers, Black LGBTQIA+, Black joy, Black love, Black businesses, Black reparations, Black children, Black pregnancy, Black midwives, Black doulas, Black mental health, Black therapists, Black physical health, Black doctors, Black dreams, Black culture, which I know y'all know very well and love. All things relating to Black people and life, we matter. Period. U.S. Constitution Article 1, Section 2, 1787, 3/5 clause. Legally, I am no longer considered 3/5 a person, but socially, I'm even less than that. I'm tired. I've been invisible. I've been taunted for my color. I've been homeless. I've been accused of things I wasn't guilty of. I've been hungry, like don't even think about food, hungry. I've been underpaid. I've been antagonized. I've been overlooked. I've been ridiculed. I'm a survivor of trauma in the worst ways. Nothing here in Lowell gave me an opportunity for sustainability. Life is temporary, yes, true, but I've clapped for and congratulated so many people that leave this city every year accomplishing, creating, rebirthing themselves. But why is it that feeling, that dream, that opportunity feels so far removed from me, even though I picked myself up by the bootstrap and put the work in? Older people often tell me the potential I have. I know I have potential. I also know I don't have access to fulfill all of my potential. Sustainability with the circumstances life has given me, even at this moment, feels like a dream. Thought I feel silly for dreaming. I am not saying these things for pity. This is just my reality. I'm almost 25 and I don't have a license. I don't have a car with the e-brake in the middle. It's too expensive for a sponsor from a driving school. I gotta worry about rent and not getting evicted again. Most ideal career opportunities I'd like to work, I will not have transportation to. I had friends that were my friends for years, but left my side because they considered me a burden to them, that I came from a cursed family, not even realizing that they're witnessing the effects of systemic oppression that was targeted for individuals just like me. People have been quick to demonize me or discard me, to silence me, so I have to be here right now. Lowell has been very anti-Black to me since I moved here at 10 years old in 2005. These systems do not empower young Black individuals like myself. These housing programs are reactive, not proactive. There's too much room for white people to have white savior complexes. These slumlords are plenty. These jobs discriminate upon hiring. Some even just don't even respond to me after they said they would. Lowell has always been racist and anti-Black despite the diversity among us. These systems in Lowell have failed me. Please, please stop failing me. Stop failing me as well as those who have been failed before me and those who will come after me. Stop failing all Black lives, oppressed lives. Allies, are you tired? Black lives, oppressed lives, we are beyond tired. No white person, no person of privilege ever, including white passing, non-Black privileged people, should ever feel obligated to hear a Black person's story of trauma. Google it. Fill in the blanks from your history books. We've been bleeding, raped, hollering, crying, angry, and heartbroken in front of your faces for 400 plus years. Give us reparations, give us equality. America should be thrilled and quick to fix presented issues because the ask is for equality, not for revenge. Give us reparations, yes, pay us for our time, and always think of us in your offices while you're signing off on policy changes, or get up out your seats and let someone more equipped step in. I want to live now because I've just been surviving.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Joseph Boyle. I live in the Highlands. I do not have personal experiences of racism that I've suffered to share with you. I'm not in a position to be able to educate you on these the way so many of the other speakers are. But like everybody else, I've been learning a lot over the last month. And I just wanted to make the point that the problem and that the enemy that we have to fight here is not just personal individual prejudice. It is also structural inequality and racism. We need to, as a community, and you as leaders, need to actively work to take apart those structures that are giving us these unequal outcomes and these undesirable results. It's not simply enough to not personally allow bigotry to influence your decision making. It's important for the city to go beyond that and to produce a more equitable system, and that's going to involve changing things. To give just one example, in a city where most of the authority is held by white people, nepotism and buddy-buddy hiring, even without any racial animus, becomes a tool for white supremacy. And so I would just like you all to keep that in mind. It's not simply a question of let's all do our best not to be bigots. That is barely a bar to even talk about clearing. Let's do our best to create a more equitable political system in Lowell. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Emmanuel Wapo. I'm a rising senior at Lowell High School. I've been at Lowell High for 3 years now, and honestly, my experiences there personally I'm just lucky that I had an older sister that went to Lowell High, so she told me about the education system and how really Lowell is. And when I first walked into Lowell High, I had really high grades when I transferred over from Innovation Academy, but the lady who tried helping me, she tried putting me in all college classes, even though I had not one B. And I just knew how the system worked, so I told her, no, please put me in all honors. And she said, can you handle it? I'm like, of course I can handle it. I have no B's. Why would you just assume that you want to put me in college classes? And they tried doing the same thing to my little brother who had all A's coming from middle school. So already right there, the education system has already been set up to fail black minority students at Lowell High. Hello to all you heads and proud members of the Lowell community. With your acclaim and due respect, I just want to speak to you about some of the injustices that happen in the system that you guys may not be aware of. At Lowell High, we have deans and staff members who repeatedly commit acts of injustice and nothing happens to them, and it gets swept underneath the rug. In 2016, a group of students called another student of color the N-word and wanted to lynch them, but only a few suspensions happened, and it was just swept underneath the rug. A couple months before quarantine started, we had a cultural day, and I was told that I was a thug at Lowell High by a teacher just because I had my white undershirt and I had a gray do-rag on, and I was told that I looked like a thug. My best friend went through the exact same thing, and there's many other incidents that always get swept underneath the rug at Lowell High School. This is not a cry for help. This is not a please, or I'm not asking you politely. I'm actually demanding that you guys reevaluate your system, because it comes right from your mission statement that you want the Lowell public schools to be proficient in upholding personal, social, and civic responsibilities in a multicultural society. And actually, to be quite honest with you guys, it's been subpar and it needs to be improved dramatically. I'm just lucky that I have the voice to speak up and I have the platform to speak up. But most students don't have that, and they don't trust the school system enough that they'll actually care for them. Because quite understandably, the Lowell public school system that I've been exposed to doesn't really have that. The problem with the Lowell High and the Lowell public school system is they need to be aware of all cultures, not just one culture, and they need to uplift all students, not just one particular group of students. When I entered the DE classes and the AP classes, I was one of the only black students in the AP and DE classes, and I was the only black male in almost all of my classes. No one in my entire class looked exactly like me until I entered the hallways. And I only had a few black teachers, and that's also part of the problem. We need to enroll students, we need to enroll teachers of color so that students know that they have someone speaking for them. Because quite honestly, I had a sophomore year teacher who was black, and she was my English teacher. And when we read heavily racist books like To Kill a Mockingbird, she had a system where if anyone said the N-word, even myself, if I said the N-word, I was to be sent to the office with a write-up, and I will never come back to that classroom until we are done reading that book. Most students don't have that. Most students have teachers that say the N-word with no filter, and they let all students say the N-word because they want them to be aware of the times. Those times were racist. If you say want us to be aware of the times, we're just inciting racist behaviors throughout all the students. The school system promised me that, and they promised students that this would not happen this school year, but it happened again. So right then and there, trust has already been broken. The only thing I ask of the Lowell public school system is to help and assist group of students that they have a platform to advocate for themselves. Right now, my friends and I, my peers, we are trying to assimilate a group that can speak for all students and the behalf of all students. It's going to happen through rigorous work and platform creation, but it's going to happen. And I just wish for the support from all of you, because there's no way that we can do it on our own. We're going to need every single last one of you in here to please support us, because when we get off the ground and we support all students, regardless of sexual orientation, gender, race, and socioeconomic background, then we can have the change we want and need. Because quite honest with you, I've lost trust in some of the adults in this room, and I really don't want to keep having that same problem, because you guys make the rules. You guys are on the board, and you guys are the only ones who are able to make the actual change. And all I ask is that you have the change in our favor, because you can either be for us and against us, and if you're against us, that is a battle that you guys do not want to start. I am not threatening any of you, of course, but I'm just saying that in a long-term battle, the students will win because we have the many and you guys are the few. This public school systems was set at the expense of other students, and it only wants to help a select few. Just like how when school was first introduced, only male students went to school and not women students. The school system has been made to fail the many in the expense of the few. But I just want you to know that these are changing times, and I hope you change with us. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. I know most of the folks in the room, but Jay Linehan, I am the president and CEO of the Greater Lowell Community Foundation. Like so many people I'm sure have said tonight, and so much we've heard over the last month, is Greater Lowell Community Foundation cries out, just like the rest of this country has with the atrocious racist murder of George Floyd just about a month ago. As a follow-up to that, at the Greater Lowell Community Foundation's annual meeting and at our board meeting on the 10th, we likewise expressed our concerns about racism in our community, and we established the Racial Equity Action Fund. And that action fund is going to provide resources as we go down the line to help address a variety of different things that need to be addressed. Yesterday, the Greater Lowell Community Foundation issued a letter, and in that letter, we supported 2 other letters that have also been issued. We thank the mayor for his letter, thank you very much, and we thank DEI Lowell DEI for their letter as well. And we agree with much of what everybody has been saying. But fundamentally, is what you've heard all night, is racism is a public health crisis. Declare it as that. This isn't an opinion. This is a fact. This is supported by data in every walk of life that we go through. It's a fact. If we cannot all say that, nothing else we try to do is going to make a damn bit of difference. Nothing. Zero. So we need to start with that fundamental premise. Then we need to talk about, okay, so how do we start to ratchet back some of that data? How do we start to look at the data and move it where we want it to go? Because it's not the place it needs to be as we speak here today. So fundamental question number 1. And then fundamental question number 2, what are we going to do about it? This is great. Talk is good, but you've all heard the adage, talk is cheap. So what's the action plan? What's going to happen out of this? A number of people said 2 minutes aren't enough to speak, and they're correct. But I thank you for starting the conversation. I thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. And I want to assure everybody here, and I want to assure the people that are listening, that the Greater Lowell Community Foundation wants to be part of the solution. This is a great city. I was born and raised in this city. It has great bones. But if we don't pay attention to the crisis that's in front of us today, we won't have the great bones that we need going forward. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the dedication. I look forward to working with so many of you as we go forward. Thank you.
Well, I think I picked the right guy to be the moderator for sure. Very, very well done. Very well done, my friend. Obviously, there's a lot of work that needs to be done here, and I think a lot of people come in this room and said that they just don't want to hear lip service or right. So I think that we need to continue from here. I think, Madam Manager, you would agree that we need to continue these conversations, especially with our young, and that was my plan with the advisory committee, because no matter how hard I've tried, when I was blessed given this job by the manager, I talked about things that I wanted to accomplish, and one of them was that I wanted to work to get closer to our young people in this city. And we've made several attempts in 7 different venues to try to do that. And obviously, there's still an issue here. I know a lot of it was about the high school, but obviously the police department was also mentioned. So that's how I see this advocacy group working. You know, I know other people have other visions of how it should work, but obviously this all needs to be part of the discussion. But I just thought it was important that everybody know what I want to accomplish. I want to hear from our young adults more. I want to hear how they feel like we did tonight, because obviously, like George said, it's going to be awful scary to be a young person of color in this city and not know how you're going to be treated by this police department. So that's part of the commitment that I'll make publicly, that I want to make sure that happens. Manager, I don't know if you have any thoughts, or George.
No, I just wanted to say, I think it was said here tonight, but make it clear that this isn't the end of the conversation, it's the beginning of the conversation and a beginning of a sustained effort that will lead to greater strength. But it's going to take a lot of work, as has been said here. You know, on a practical note, you know, we heard from many people. I know people wanted more time, but we wanted to hear from as many people as possible. I think if the mayor, you know, agrees, I think we also keep our website open to take continued comments. I could expect that people may have seen this tonight and may want to comment. So we will take all of your comments and emails and make sure everybody has access to them. And if there's a desire to have more of this type of conversation. But I do think there's a time for the leaders to come together on a working group and next steps as to what needs to be done. There's a lot said. I have a lot of notes and to digest as a group as to what the next steps should be and how we include the community in that work, in that process.
I just want to follow up with what the superintendent said and the manager, and I thank everybody for coming down here tonight. Thank all the speakers, and it does. It shows that we have some work to do, and my hope is that the council can come together and make some good motions, put motions forward to work with the manager, with the superintendent of police, with all departments in the city. And we can work together collaboratively to come up with some good concrete changes, work with our state delegation, our state senator's office. This is something where we do need to keep the focus and continue this work and continue the dialogue. Again, tonight we wanted to get as many people in as we could so we could listen. We didn't stop anybody from going over the 2 minutes. But we appreciate everybody's time, and this will continue. Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. We certainly can't solve problems that we don't surface, and tonight was an important step to surfacing issues that are in our community, and it puts, I think it puts proper punctuation on our need to get to work. I mean, yes, we have diversity, but diversity doesn't always mean inclusion. We have to be really intentional about that. And we heard such powerful stories from courageous people and residents and youth leaders and who, you know, don't feel included and they're tired. And you know, it is incumbent upon us. It is our responsibility to change that. And so I know everyone here is leaning in, and there's a lot of great intention in this room. And I just want to say I look forward to doing my part and working with all of you to make sure that, you know, we are held accountable to the folks in our community. But I really appreciate you bringing us together, and I really appreciate the fact that this will be an ongoing conversation that we can all learn from. Thank you.
Well, again, thank you for attending and thank you for listening. These situations are uncomfortable, but I think with the leaders here listening to what people had to say, I believe that we can take this forward. And I believe that uncomfortable is good because it shows that there is some kind of passion. Thank you.
Fru, can you explain the outfit that you were wearing at the senior center?
Oh, thank you very much, George. You know, I am of the royal family in Amazonia, and the king, my grandfather, I actually brought him to share. I brought a little bit of African culture to the city hall, and 2 times here. That is my heritage. That is who I am. You know, I mean, when you saw me and my children grow up there, I was just expressing what my father told me, that son, your culture is your identity. And when I stood in front of everyone there, I could only hear his voice speaking through me and my children, that, you know, we are bringing Africa to share to the wonderful people of Lowell.
I thought that was very nice of you.
Thank you.
Hey, look, before you go, I got to take a picture for the president. So let me get this ready. Give me your best smile. Give me your best smile, your best wave. Here we go. We're done. Thanks.